G'day guys, welcome back to Statchat Sports. We're here again with a follow-up on our pre-season previews for the Premier League. We're looking at ladder positions 16th through to 13th today. We covered the relegated 3 and 14th spot in our previous video, so if you haven't seen that, make sure you check that out. But Tazza, I'll hand over to yourself for our 16th spot.
Yeah, look, in 16th this year, we've got the other promoted team in Nottingham Forest. Personally, I quite like Forest. I like the story. I mean, that's not going to get them to 16th spot. It never will. But, I mean, Steve Cooper, what he's done with this team in the space of a year and turning that team around from bottom of the championship and getting promoted in the same year. I mean, he's got that team believing. There's a belief, there's a mentality in that team that is just huge there. And coupled with the ins for that team, I want I don't even know how to pronounce his name.
Let's call him Taiwo.
Yeah, Taiwo, yeah. Nico Williams, I mean, we're both Liverpool fans. He's been hard done by not getting a chance there. He will get his chance. The much talked about Jesse Lingard and Dean Henderson. So there's some pretty decent additions there. They should, I think, have enough. I mean, the way they played to turn around that championship season, I believe that they can turn that pretty much, like, I can carry that form into the league and at least bring themselves to safety.
Yeah, I agree. There's an element of excitement around them. I think out of the 3 promoted sides, for me personally, and obviously yourself as well, yeah, there's something about them that sort of excites us, and we're sort of keen to see and watch them and see what happens. But yeah, look, they've made good moves in the transfer window, and really they haven't lost a great deal either. I believe that, they've moved on their goalkeeper, but they bring in Henderson, although it's only on loan, but he hasn't really got the chance at United, so I don't know if there's an option to buy in there or whatever, what sort of clauses involved in that. But they've got the core of a decent side and a side that should be able to do enough to at least keep them from safety.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the core that they have built through the last year, they're going to need to keep that intact. I mean, you don't want to be adding too many pieces at one point. At the same time. Henderson is, we've all seen his talent. He'll likely slot in and do a real job for him. Taiwo is, he was banging him in, I think, in the Bundesliga for Union Berlin. So yeah, I think this is his chance. There are great players in there. I'd just be very wary of throwing them all in and upsetting the balance for this team, because I think, considering what they have done, I think they really need to honour the players that got them there, because they just did it in such a big way.
BT had him the lowest out of all of us. He had him finishing 19th, second bottom.
Yeah.
You want to look into that too much, or is that just BT maybe not knowing as much as us?
I'll probably put it down to BT not knowing as much, but I think he was the last to see our aggregate, what way he thought. I think he was just going for a bit of a spicy pick there. I'm gonna put it out there.
Yeah, no, I'd probably tend to agree, to be honest. I'm gonna go ahead and say that's not a great call from him. But it's his opinion, so
stats probably say that most of the promoted teams don't stay up. So he's probably gone the odds there, but I think this one's a bit different.
Moving on to 15th, we've picked Crystal Palace to take that spot. A little bit lower than where they finished last season. Finished 12th last season, but I'm intrigued to hear from you, because you were the most optimistic out of all of us. You had them all the way up at 9th.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think they've always been a solid team. Obviously, the loss of Conor Gallagher is going to hurt. But I think we haven't seen a hell of a lot of action from them in the transfer window. But I think Vieira, what he's building there, I think there is some promise in that team. I mean, Zaha's going to have to carry a big load. He always does. I mean, they just carries that team on his back year in, year out. But I think with a manager like Vieira, I mean, they've been solid in the past, and I think with a goal like that, I think there's only good things to come from that.
Yeah, I mean, Vieira in his playing days was a midfield rock in his own right and a defensive unit. So, that was probably maybe one of Palace's weaknesses. Was the defensive side of things. So, and I wouldn't necessarily say last season he shored that up too much, but it was kind of outweighed by them going forward. So having a second full season, pre-season under the belt, yeah, it'll be interesting to see, if he can implement his style of play that little bit more, and tighten things up, across the park, across the 11 players, because, you're right. I can see where you're coming from. That they always have sort of been that kind of mid-tier, almost a bit of a bogey team for certain sides, because they have got that element of surprise. Like Zaha, he's just that type of player. He can just catch you. But the defensive side of things is what's let them down in the past. They've got lots of youth and exciting youth. Elise Eze, two sort of players that broke through last season. Obviously Gallagher, who's not there anymore, but he made a name for himself there at Palace. So yeah, Vieira is good. He's clearly quite good at bringing out the young guns and building them into something special. So like I said, with a second season under him, will be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. You comment on, I mean, him being a defensive sort of midfielder rock, in a sense. I mean, who better to translate that into I mean, he did his apprenticeship at City, I believe. I mean, he's seen what a team can be. I mean, bringing his expertise from his playing days into that squad, I think, I mean, maybe ninth is probably a little bit high, but I just do expect Palace, with a little bit more investment in the window. We haven't seen much for them. They've only signed Cheick Doucouré from Lens as a defensive midfielder for £19. So we haven't seen much. There's still more time, and I believe we will see a little bit more investment to get to this squad to take the next step.
Yeah, look, it's an optimistic pick from yourself, putting him at 19th. Ninth. So, but that's all right. That's good. That's what we like to say.
Got to have a roughie somewhere. I mean, I struggled to pick a roughie elsewhere, and I think Palace can be that team.
Moving on to our penultimate team for today, spot number 14. We're getting sort of into that mid-tier bracket now, where it is kind of difficult to group some of these teams, but we've gone for Brentford.
Yeah, look, Brentford, the loss of Christian Eriksen is the big talking point here. How do they deal with it? I mean, he wasn't there the whole season, so we can't say like it was all Brentford was all Christian Eriksen. They started like a house on fire last season, and I mean, petered out a little bit, but Eriksen gave him that little kick towards the end. They were in trouble, relegation trouble at points throughout that season, and that injection of Eriksen was what got them really. They finished 13th, so they were really able to get a kick out of that. But yeah, I mean, I had them 15th. We've got them 14th in this prediction. I think they're solid. I mean, with Ivan Toney, that is an absolute must that they keep him. There's just too many goals from him. I mean, they're going to miss a little bit of production out of Eriksen that come from the back end of the season, but he is just such a must. Even when he was out, you could see when he served his suspension last season, you could see that just the goals dried up. Really don't have too many options there. And I mean, I think we'd see exactly the same thing if they were to lose him before the end of the season.
Yeah, 100%. He was their man in the championship. Like he basically carried them to the Premier League. So yeah, it's no surprise that he was the main target man for him last season. There are speculations around his future at the club. I think United were in. I mean, United's name is just about thrown around with every player, but yeah, he's been a name under the radar, and if he does go, I could see him getting relegated, to be perfectly honest. From what we saw last season, like you said, started shit hot and then really tapered off, and really only bounced back, through Ericsson, really. And now with him gone, there's a big hole to fill, and they haven't properly replaced him. They've brought in Ben Mee and Statchat from the keeper from Lazio. Obviously, good experience from Ben Mee, but he's a little bit older. He's not really going to offer a great deal for them. And then a couple of young players for the future. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting season for them. A tough one. It'll be tough, no doubt. They really look into. I mean, it sounds obvious, but they really need a third season in the Premier League next season. They need to stay up, and just continuing to invest in that squad piece by piece.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, the investment that they've done in this window was with an eye on building a foothold in the Premier League, and I mean it's all. It's all gone to waste if they can't keep the star players like Tony in the team. So, yeah, absolutely, I agree with you there, and it's a big wait and see. I mean, I like Statchat. I think that's a huge get. I mean, on a free, I think it was. The experience that he brings, I think it was over 200 caps with Lazio. So it's huge experience for a team that are really crying out for obviously losing the experience in Ericsson. Someone that's had that top line experience just to slot back in there.
Yeah. Likewise with Ben Mee as well. I mean, Burnley captain last season and numerous caps for them. He'll add that to them as well.
Agreed.
Our last team for today, Brighton, finishing 13th on the table. They had a great season last season, to be fair. They had a really good start. And again, like Brentford, tapered off a little bit. They were sort of able to bounce back to a degree. Finishing all the way up in 9th last season, which, cracking that top 10 for them is big. But, they've lost Basuma. That's a big hole in their midfield that is now missing. And no one's come in that we can really discuss about, because they just haven't really. The signings confuse me. I'll say that. I mean, I don't know the direction that they're going in. Like, they haven't strengthened the squad. You could argue their squad has been weakened, obviously, with the loss of Basuma, but they certainly haven't done anything to regain that sort of strength that they've lost.
Yeah, Basuma was just a keystone in that team. I mean, he was just the pillar that team was really built around, and to have that ripped out, it's naturally, in my opinion, going to be a regression. Especially, like I said, if there is an investment. And I mean, to this point, we've only seen one real half decent addition to that team, and that's an attacker from the first year of Paraguay. I mean, Julio Enciso. I mean, I'm not sure. That's obviously they've just lost Basuma, who in that midfield there. That's where they need to be strengthening. They've got guys like Neil Maupay and Leandro Trossard in that team, and they were doing a fair, they were pretty good in that team. last year, and they're going to be key players moving forward. Is he the need the Enciso that they've signed? I'm not sure. They must see something in him, because paying $11 million from a guy in the Paraguayan first tier, there must be something there. I mean, I can't say I'm a regular watcher of that league. I generally myself just stick to the top 5 leagues in the world, but that's why I don't get paid to be a scout. So yeah, there's got to be regression there. I think that's the big thing we take from the movements in and out. One guy I do want to see a bit more from this year is Alexis McAllister. I think he had a few games last year. I think 33 games I think he played over the course of the season for Brighton. 5 goals and 2 assists. I mean, he's 23 from memory. I think he's still young. He just needs, I think he needs to take that next step with this team for them to really find themselves hanging on to a mid-table place.
Yeah, they need to be able to find some goals from elsewhere. I think Trossard and Mope both finished on 8 last season, which for a team finishing 9th is not a lot. So that you don't want to heavily rely on 2 guys to sort of, put the ball in the back of the net. So yeah, a player like McAllister will definitely need to step up, and maybe some goals from somewhere elsewhere, in the midfield. Adam Lallana, he's never really been a huge goal scorer, but I mean, he can offer that sort of goal scoring threat, and obviously the assists. Danny Welbeck as well, everyone's sort of favorite Man United flop. He's been around, he's done okay. He's done, bits and pieces, but it's kind of just a mixed together side for me. And I mean, it's a credit to Graham Potter, because I don't know how they've managed to finish 9th last season with the squad that they've got. Yeah, Graham Potter has always been so solid for him, and there were talks of him possibly moving on to bigger and better things. But I mean, as it stands, he's going to be hanging around at Brighton for the upcoming season. And the one thing that you can guarantee from a Brighton side or a Brighton game is just it's going to be I wouldn't say a dour affair, but they had the lowest combined goals basically scored in any of their games. Well, 42 goals for and 42 against, the lowest combination of anyone in the league. So, I mean, Potter's got that team well drilled, if not for anything else. Probably just need to see a few more goals, because for a team, it's quite surprising for a team that finished in the top half of the table, they barely averaged a goal a game. And like you said, with Trossard and Mope getting 8 each, they need to be finding them elsewhere. And I think, maybe this first tier Paraguayan is gonna bring them. But look, I think the midfield is where they've really got to see some more production. That's going to see the end of another episode. We've, at the time of recording this, the season begins next week. We've not got long, but we'll get through them all, and we'll touch on the rest of the sides. As always, make sure you're leaving comments below if you agree, disagree with anything we said. If you're a fan of any of these sides, make sure you're letting us know your thoughts, where you think they'll finish, if you agree, disagree, anything like that. We appreciate the interaction. A couple of Leeds fans in our last video letting us know their thoughts. Not all positives, but that's all right. It's all good. So thanks for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe if you're not already. Leave a like on the video. It helps the videos out a lot. And stay tuned for our next one. And we'll see you next time.